If what Narracott told Vera is true, and mind you, I take anything he says with a grain of salt, then they will not be sending a boat until at least Monday, even if the storm clears.
Wise to remember Narracott's the odd man out here.
Yes, thanks to you, I believe, Blore.
At least nothing else has occurred.
I hope you are correct, Miss Claythorne. However, I feel compelled to draw your attention to this table's centerpiece.
Now 2 are broken. How odd.
Ah, Mr. Narracott, good morning. Since Mr. Marsden won't be joining us, there is an extra place for breakfast, although breakfast itself seems to be a trifle behind schedule.
I'm afraid there is no breakfast at present. Mrs. Rogers has not been able to carry on this morning.
What's the matter with the woman? I was promised fresh apple juice this morning.
I must tell you a sad piece of news. Mrs. Rogers died in her sleep.
Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
She was a very skittish creature. And she had a shock last night. It might have been heart failure.
Her heart certainly failed to beat. What caused it to fail is the question.
Did you hear anything in the night?
No, my sleep was quite restful.
Much obliged for your assistance, Miss Claythorne. Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death, Judge?
I'm afraid it confirms my opinion that there is something very wrong on this island. It occurs to me that if these 2 deaths were not suicides or accidents, that Mr. Owen may very well be responsible. If so, he is almost certainly on this island somewhere.
I agree. I think we should find a way off this island immediately.
Did you hear anything in the night?
I confess I slept fitfully. Marsden's death, the storm, but I heard nothing. Possibly also due to the storm.
Understandable, Judge. Quite understandable.
Mr. Narracott, can your boat be repaired?
I doubt very seriously it can be repaired. Mr. Blore did a good job.
Steady on. I didn't know then how the land lay, did I?
So you say.
If you find a means of leaving the island or of signaling the mainland, I'm sure we would all be in your debt.
And I'm sure all of us would help in any way we could.
Hear, hear.
We're never going to leave the island. None of us are ever going to leave.
What were you hinting at concerning Marsden's politics?
Only that he'd become mixed up with some foreigners. I think that's all I'd better say at present.
Good day to you, Judge. What was the cause of death?
Impossible to say offhand.
There must be an autopsy.
I certainly couldn't give a certificate without one.
When did you find out?
Rogers roused me at first light. He'd gotten up to light the stove and see to the power generator before waking her. When she didn't respond, he got me.
Can you tell when she died?
Without an autopsy, not for certain, but it must have been some hours ago. The body was, quite cold.
Did you hear anything in the night?
No, although it appears I should have.
That is all for now, Dr. Armstrong. Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
We know that she consumed something last night. Dr. Armstrong told us so.
I, Mr. Lombard?
You gave her a sedative.
A small dose of Trianol, nothing more.
Doctors have made mistakes before.
You're suggesting I accidentally gave Mrs. Rogers an overdose?
Accidentally or otherwise. One death may have been an accident or suicide, but 2 in the space of a few hours?
Simply outrageous, man of my standing.
Any more questions, Mr. Narracott?
Did you hear anything in the night?
I'm a very light sleeper. In future, I hope everyone will bear that in mind. Yes, several times I heard something.
You didn't investigate?
With a judge, a detective, and an amateur sleuth in the house, you hardly need my poor skills in that line. I prefer to keep watch.
The hunter in his blind?
A good analogy, Judge.
You said you recognized Owen's voice.
I've had time to think it over, and I'm sure I did. But I see no reason to share that information with you.
Thank you, Lombard. Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
Conscience.
What do you mean by that?
She was accused, together with her husband, of having deliberately murdered her former employer, an old lady. You all saw her last night. She broke down completely. The shock of her wickedness brought home to her was too much to bear. She literally died of fear.
Possibly, if there was cardiac weakness.
Call it, if you prefer, an act of God.
That is all, Miss Brett. Any theories about Mrs. Rogers' death?
I'm sure Mrs. Rogers wasn't to blame. A good, loyal woman.
Did you hear anything in the night?
I thought I heard a voice calling my name. My wife, she died several years ago. I expect it was a dream.
General, you said you thought you recognized Lombard.
Did I? Yes, I expect I did. But I fail to see what business it might be of yours.
Thank you, General.
You're a detective, Mr. Bloor.
Any theories?
I appreciate you recognizing the fact there's a professional present. I'd like to know what she had to eat or drink last night before she collapsed.
Rogers assures me she had nothing whatsoever.
Of course he would say that. But see here. They've done a murder and gotten away with it. Now she's all hysterical, likely to give the show away. She's a danger to her husband, that's what she is.
Oh, I should hardly think a man would do that to his wife.
You said you knew something about the history of this island.
Most of the old stuff can be found in the library. Its more recent history is just as interesting, though. But I'm not inclined to divulge that just yet.
That is all for now, Mr. Bloor.
Chapter 3. 8 little sailor boys traveling in Devon. One said he'd stay there, and then there were 7.
Rogers didn't let his wife's death get in the way of his custodial duties. I assume everyone has gone off on their own pursuits. I should do the same. Hello, Rogers.
Hello, sir. Was there anything you required?
Just looking around. That ham looks good.
Mrs. Rogers had a way with hams. Baked, boiled, fried, pickled, en casserole. Always a treat.
When will dinner be ready?
8 o'clock, sir. Or close to it.
Have you noticed anything out of the ordinary since you arrived here, Rogers?
Just this, sir. This house is more like a museum than a residence. I've dusted every square inch, and I've found articles left behind by many previous owners, including the Robsons, that actress, and even the Admiralty. The only owners who seem to have left no mark at all are Mr. and Mrs. Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Et voilà. I'm afraid it's stuck that way.
Nice to have a break in the weather, although I don't expect it will last.
You don't seem concerned by the two deaths.
I remember a text that hung in my nursery as a child. Be sure thy sin will find thee out.
So in some way, Marston's and Mrs. Rogers' sins have found them out?
Of course. I have nothing to fear. I've committed no sin. You, if your story is true, have only been protecting your brother. God's law understands such a loving gesture, even if man's law does not.
What are you knitting?
A shawl for my niece.
It's quite subdued for a girl, isn't it?
A man would say that, of course. She is a modest child, and decent. These colors are most appropriate.
Have you seen Rogers?
He's in the kitchen, I think, preparing a cold supper.
I won't take up any more of your time, Miss Brent. This could use a closer look. I can't walk around carrying an axe. They'll lock me up, or worse. The grass is slippery and the slope is steep. I'd best stick to the path.
Maybe Owen has wings and is perched someplace we can't reach.
Or swimming around out there with the fish.
You think you'll find Owen?
If he's here, we'll find him.
Why don't you split up?
I suggested that.
The island isn't that big. I felt it was good to stick together to be sure every inch has been covered.
Have you seen Vera?
Miss Claythorne was up on Ship Rock when we searched up there.
Have you seen the General?
He was down on that little beach to the south of Ship Rock. He's definitely gaga, if you ask me.
Like he was in a trance, talking to his wife, asking her forgiveness. Creepy. He sent that Richmond fellow to his death for playing up to the missus. Make no mistake about that.
You look tired.
Miss Claythorne's concern for my well-being moves me far more than yours, Narrowcart. But thanks all the same.
Any conclusions?
Only that I'm damn glad I brought this along.
You have a gun? Why didn't you say something?
I would have used it if necessary.
Still, I don't like it very much.
Well, I don't care very much.
Any idea how we can get off the island?
When I was... well, a friend of mine, actually. When he was in the army, he saw a new parachute design that allowed you to steer. If you like, I can draw you a plan to construct a parachute like the one he saw.
That would be splendid. Thank you.
1 parachute per order. It's pretty crude, but I think you'll get the idea. I added a list of materials, too.
Thanks. Thanks for your time, Mr. Longworth. Nice peaceful spot you found for yourself, sir.
There is so little time. So little time.
I'm making a tour of the island, so to speak.
Quite the adventurer, aren't you?
Have you seen anything that might be useful to us?
You don't understand. You don't understand at all. I'm not sorry I came here. No, it was time. I'm content at last. It feels very strange to come to the end, not have to go on. I know now I will never leave. That's peace. Real peace.
Thank you, General.
Perhaps this would grant the aging general increased mobility.
There is no cause for that. I can't get them to fit. There is no cause for that. I can't get them to fit. Nothing a little elbow grease can't undo. Let's hope that holds. There. The bees are now fast asleep. All quite drowsy, anyhow. Goats. They look hungry. That goat is a menace.